Has their minutes. Okay.
I think it'd be kind of fun.
Good morning, everyone. We have our agenda before us. First of all, on the agenda, it had approval of minutes from July 28th. That was actually July 24th, which has been corrected in your minutes. Has everyone had a chance to look through those? If so, do I have a motion for approval?
I so move.
Prakash, second. Anyone?
Second.
Second by Dean. Any discussion? If none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We have an application before us from TA Investments located at 315 Main Avenue. I see it was previously a Renaissance Zone project, and Megan, take us through this.
Yes, good morning, Chairperson and Renaissance Zone Authority. Thanks for coming in for a special meeting today. We've had some work this year, especially with the development plan, so we appreciate this special meeting. Yeah, just a quick note. So one thing that when we receive an application, one of the first things we do is just check our history. With recent legislative changes, there is an option to have a second project, but that's not until 30 years, and so nobody's eligible in the state yet, but that's just a side note. But when we received this application, we took a peek into our records. We did see that there was an application back in 2001. We determined based on the work and what was kind of existing today that project was never finalized. Never approved. However, it did receive local property tax benefits. Back then, working with our assessor's office, we determined that the project is still eligible. So it's more informational for your board, just as an FYI. So this application is at 315 Main Avenue. The intent of this project is to rehab most of or majority of the building, the approximate 10,000 square feet of the two-story building for residential use. The current value is about $591,000. The investment proposed is about $900,000. That investment is about $90 per square foot. For a residential rehab, there's a minimum requirement of $25 per square foot and 20% of the full and true value. And I'll note, I did notice yesterday, there's a couple typos related to that in the staff report, so I just wanted to make sure that up on the screen you knew that it's the $25 and 20% of the true value. For tax information, using current values in today's mill levy, it would increase, this is on the building, would increase from $8,800 annually to about $24,000. So looking at the structure today, and I apologize, I'll go back here. So just west here, it's 4th Street, so it's a couple blocks just to the south of us, 315 Main Avenue, so right at Main Avenue and 4th Street is where we're talking about. So this is what the building looks like from the front and the rear. A lot of work occurring in the interior, proposed in the interior, demolition, HVAC, walls, plumbing, electrical, those types of things. And then external, there's painting, potentially some new windows, according to the applicant, depending on what they find. In your plans, you'll note that there's it includes both 315 Main and 307. So the applicant is doing some work on 307. So the plans that are included in your packet, there's typically a red box around them just so you can kind of see what the area that we're talking about are related to this application. This is a rendering proposed for the project from the applicant. And then the floor plans are a little bit, hopefully they're easier to read in your packet, but there was an addition on the building about 15 or 20 years ago. There's no work being proposed there. And then up on the second floor, there's some space that has no work. But the remainder of the building would have all of this work. Right now, there's 3 existing residential units, and there would be an addition of 5 for a total of 8 residential units. These are some elevations where you can see just the structure and kind of the scope of work. Staff finds that this meets the minimum requirements and is recommending approval. Be happy to answer any questions that you have, and our applicant is here today if you have any questions for them.
Go ahead, Prakash.
As always, we appreciate the work that you do, so make it easier for us to ask some questions too. Since I've been serving on this group, I think most of the proposals until last time, 80 percentile they score, at least. So the last 2 times, I think even now, it's so 50 percentile, and are there things that we can recommend to improve that score? One of the things in your summary that you mentioned about minimal improvements to proposed exterior of the structure. There are certain things we may not be able to do anything, but there's certain things they can make improvement. So I was wondering as to if there's something that you can suggest.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner, for that. That is correct. That is something that staff acknowledges, and it's not, the scope of work is a little bit different in terms of commercial versus residential than the application you saw a couple of months ago, but they're in kind of a similar state, as you note, about the scoring. And staff has tried to be consistent with the scoring, and though we do acknowledge that, yes, it's kind of in this unusual situation where the building is in pretty good condition, so the exterior work is maybe more minimal, and so we can take a closer look at addressing that. I know that is something that we are hopeful to look for soon, is maybe taking a look at how that scoring works a little bit closer, and looking at that closer. So we appreciate that feedback. Thank you.
Go ahead, Mayor.
Just the building next to it, they've done extensive exterior work on it, redone the brick and done other things. What is the building next to it used for? Is that a church or chapel, or is there a residential on top of it?
I'm not sure if there could be residential. I'm not sure entirely. I don't, at least that wasn't a Renaissance Zone project as of late. But yes, you're right. They've done some extensive work there. And I know at least on the main floor, it is a church. Up above, I'm not entirely sure what's happening there.
And then parking is to the east of the building, but it's off-street, basically?
For this project, let's see if I've got it on an aerial. So if you can see my cursor, there is parking on the east side of 307. So the owner owns both 307 and 315. And in 307, there's a hallway that connects. And so my understanding is there's parking available in that lot for folks who will be living at 315 Main Avenue. They'll get access through that 307.
Very good.
Okay. Commissioner Pepcorn?
So, Madam Chair, thank you. So to me, the on the criteria, the number 3 where there's a possible 20 points and they get 3, to me, that's the area where it really kind of fell down. Mm-hmm. And I'm a little bit confused because to me, we want to have more residential in the downtown. And I get it would be better if it was mixed use, but to me, this property, that isn't a potential thing. So I guess that's my thing. That's my concern, that we're not, it seems like we're penalizing them, because I think it's great that they're adding additional housing in the downtown. And so just because the building doesn't fit that, I guess that's my question. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I can. Thank you for that. That is, again, one of those things that when we look at that scoring and how that reads and what it is really seeking, that's why the score is what it is. It is a residential only project. It's not a mixed use project. And, similarly to item 1, we acknowledge that all projects can't be all things. And so that's where I think we're looking forward to taking a closer look at the scoring and how it's been shaking out. And as you know, your board has kind of heard this with every application since the downtown and focus plan was approved in 2019. I guess when we updated the Renaissance Zone Development Plan in 19, we added a lot of those downtown and focus plan components, and that's where we've kind of seen a little bit of a change in the scoring, even though, staff's supportive of the projects that we've seen, and even though the score is a little bit lower.
Right. That's an ultimate goal with the combination of downtown in focus, but though we look at the scoring, we do look at the inner aspects of it and realize that can't all be multi-use and fall into all the categories.
Chair, if I may, sorry.
Yes, go ahead, Nicole.
I was just going to add to that, maybe for the public who's listening as well, or future applicants, is, we may have in 2019, what I would suspect is maybe overcorrected to apply the downtown and focus plans, visions. And what a lot of people just to break down how we internally process applications is in the 2019 plan is what we would call maybe a future land use plan or a zoning, not really a zoning district, but a land use plan that talks about this highest and best use kind of scale. What we're not doing in the in-focus plan is maybe talking about how the Renaissance Zone works with small businesses. And so that's probably, we look forward to looking at that both with the growth plan LDC update when we talk about incentives, and then the land development code itself, and then tying that to the update of the RZ plan update as well. So all these pieces, we're working to kind of coalesce a little bit in finer detail as we move forward. It's just going to take us a couple years.
Okay. Did I miss somewhere, how many units are going to be in this building?
After the project is complete, 8 units. There's 3 that exist today.
Okay. Go ahead, Chad.
Madam Chair, thank you to our planning team. I think we all saw the 3 out of 20 and just said, 3 out of 20, that is, as was referenced before. And I think maybe you could reference something to the effective vacancy rates. So maybe that's your caveat or your line out would be, if we have a high vacancy rate in one of the 2, you could lean towards or lean into that weakness or strength depending upon your perspective. So as Commissioner Pepcorn suggested, we want more houses downtown. This is more houses downtown. I don't think there's a need for a lot more commercial space right now at this time, but maybe 2 years or 5 years from now we will. But I think that's, if you're going to have an amendment, maybe that's your tweak. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other questions or comments from the group? Or any additional information?
I apologize. I have one more question. So do you have a summary of the finance of what the property taxes are they're paying right now? And then what they will be once the Renaissance, once the improvements are done? And if you don't, that's okay. But if we could have that, just so we know the numbers of, and maybe it's in there and I just don't see it. But anyway,
It's up. Yep. Thank you for that.
you
Up on the slide. So currently for the building using
There you
today's
go.
numbers. So
That's-
you'll see the difference there in the building. Yep.
as many people can testify, I'm not that bright, and there the number is right in front of my face. So it's 8:13, so it's a little early. I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
I thought maybe I was missing something. Anything else?
I have a trivial question,
Yeah,
Madam
go
Chair.
ahead, Chad.
To our owner, we were discussing before the meeting, I'm guessing we presuppose those 3 round circles, those are the structural columns coming down from the tower, right? Yeah, that's cool. Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair.
And they did make note in our information that it's weeds and not real lovely on the north side of the building, so that'll all be cleaned up and be green space, which we definitely need. So thank you. So, thoughts of the group. How would you like to move forward?
If you're looking for motion, I'd make a motion to approve.
We have a motion for approval. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Reed. Any further discussion? If none, we'll have a roll call vote, please.
Pipcorn,
Aye.
Madell,
Aye.
Matthew,
Aye.
Peterson,
Yes.
Mahoney,
Yes.
Bershani?
Yes.
Mattern?
Yes. Motion carries. Excellent. Congratulations, and we look forward to seeing the finished project. I would like for the group to consider in future, maybe in the next year or two, to just do a little hour tour and take a look at some of the finished products that have resulted from the Renaissance Zone. It's always exciting to see. Next on our agenda, we had a workshop 2 weeks ago. Very good information. A couple people couldn't make it, but it was a nice, small, intimate group and good discussion. And Prakash, I think you'd agree too that it was very helpful.
That was very helpful.
I think one of the challenges of Megan, Nicole, Jim, the whole crew, is to take the plan, the Fargo plan for development and the downtown in focus and all the other things that we've worked on and meld them together to make it cohesive, that they're reaching the goals that Fargo has defined. Would you like to go through our findings and the information, please?
Yep, I'll just go over it briefly, but if there's questions, be happy to answer those. So at the workshop, we did talk about one of the bigger things that was discussed was the recently approved growth plan, Fargo Growth Plan. And so one of the primary recommendations was to align the economic development incentives with future development strategies for optimal growth. And so you've kind of been hearing Nicole had mentioned a little bit about that and have kind of been seeing in our packets and things about that. And so that's where we're very hopeful that in a couple years we've got that worked through. And so that's where we, as staff, kind of made the recommendation or brought to the group that was there of maybe let's just kind of hang tight for right now for the most part and just see how that comes out and then revisit the development plan upcoming in the next couple of years. And so that is something that we have to go through and update this plan and go through those motions as we normally would. But we can make changes and updates to the plan at any time, again, going through kind of those same processes that are outlined in the Century Code. And so that was staff's recommendation. So we did talk about that growth plan. We talked about a little bit about comparisons to other cities for investment thresholds in other cities who are maybe still on the 5-year or who may have adopted the 8-year. Talked a little bit about the zone boundary. And I think, for the most part, our recommendation is to really not make any changes, but we also talked about one area we see maybe having a little bit more change is just north of us here in the northeast corner of the Renaissance Zone. So the boundary is still topic kind of discussion. And so that's kind of where that discussion went in terms of those changes or kind of proceeding with primarily the same plan and not making many changes to it. I also wanted to note that there is scheduled a public open house for the Renaissance Zone Development Plan. So that is scheduled for just under 2 weeks, Tuesday, September 24th, from 3:30 to 5 o'clock in this room for you all. You're all invited, and we hope you can attend, as well as the public who has an interest or is curious to come to that meeting as well. And so then the last thing I just wanted to note is that the next steps, we'll have that open house. On Friday, we did send a boundary-wide letter to all the property owners. And so we'll see what kind of communication we get back from folks from that. Also invited those people to attend the open house. And then depending on what we hear, your next meeting is scheduled for 2 weeks from today. I'm not aware of any business items, and so I'm not sure that we'll actually have that meeting. And then in October, depending on kind of what we hear, of course, we'll bring any findings that we hear to your board, but are anticipating your final review on the document in October, and then moving through the motions of coordinating with the school district and the county, and then ultimately the city commission to kind of finish out the year. So if anybody has any questions or comments, either now or at any point, feel free to let Nicole or I know.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And I know, what is your deadline for having updates to the state? You decide to just send it in as is, and we can always make changes, correct?
Yes, that's right. So by the end of the year is when we would need to have an agreement executed with the state to keep our zone status. And at any point, we can make changes to the development plan. And we just go through the same process as we're doing right now. So, yep.
All right. Thank you, Megan.
Yeah, thank you.
Is there any other business to come before the group? If none, looks like we won't be meeting on the 25th in 2 weeks. So we'll see you in October perhaps, and meeting adjourned.